All right, let's jump straight into this. Look, when you hear the word blockchain, I know your mind probably goes right to wild, volatile cryptocurrencies, internet hype, and those super polarizing debates online. But for this explainer, we're going to completely set all of that noise aside. Today, we're going on a journey into the actual fundamental plumbing of our global financial systems. We're basing this whole exploration on a really fascinating MIT lecture by Professor Robert M. Townsend. We're going to see how these emerging technologies aren't just some passing internet fad, but they're actually profound tools that can fix the deep structural flaws in exactly how money and assets move around the globe.
So here's our roadmap for the explainer today. First, economics meets computer science. Then we'll break down our three technological pillars: distributed ledgers, smart contracts, and encryption. And finally, we'll wrap up with the future financial design.
All right, Section 1, Economics meets Computer Science. To truly understand the future of money, we really have to bridge what is a massive academic divide. Just look at the wildly different languages these two worlds speak. Over on the left side, you've got computer science throwing around buzzwords like blockchain, tokenization, and computational algorithms. Then, over on the right, you've got traditional economics. They're talking about contract theory, mechanism design, and monetary theory. Now, for the longest time, these two disciplines have operated in total silos. It's like two ships passing in the night. But our goal today is to merge the big picture objectives of economics with the actual implementation tools of computer science. We basically need to get these two massive academic worlds onto the exact same page. We're going to take those tools on the left and use them to solve the messy human and market problems over on the right.
So how do we actually do that? Well, we are going to zero in on three specific technological pillars. These three things literally form the foundation of a completely new era of financial design. We're talking about distributed ledgers, smart contracts, and encryption. Let's unpack that first one.
Section 2, Tool Number 1, Distributed Ledgers.
Okay, so we need to look at distributed ledgers simply as reimagined databases. It's just a brand new way to record who owns what, which can solve some really deeply entrenched issues in our old legacy financial accounts. But, there's no magic bullet here. There is absolutely no such thing as a perfect blockchain. And that's because it's governed by something called the CAP theorem. It's an impossibility theorem in computer science, and it basically says that in a distributed data store, you cannot simultaneously have consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. You can only pick two. You're always going to have to make trade-offs. Honestly, it's a lot like managing a real-world economy. Whether it's a tiny village or the entire US economy, you just can't have absolutely everything perfectly optimized all at once.
Which leads us to a very fair question. If these systems are this complex, and they require all these difficult trade-offs, why even use these new technologies in the first place? I mean, why go through the massive headache of rebuilding the entire database of money instead of just sticking to the systems that banks have been using for decades?
Professor Townsend actually hits the nail on the head here. He says, heaven forbid, just use the new technologies for the sake of doing it without thinking about social welfare. And that right there is the overarching economic imperative. We aren't doing this just to chase some internet hype. We have to design financial systems that genuinely improve social welfare. The technology has to actually serve a human purpose, right?
Now, in economics, the gold standard we use to judge if a system is truly serving that purpose is called Pareto optimality. It's basically a baseline standard of efficiency. A system is considered Pareto optimal if you literally cannot make some participants better off without harming other participants. So if you can tweak things to improve life for someone without hurting anyone else, well, then your current system is inefficient. And, spoiler alert, our current financial system, it is incredibly inefficient.
Just how inefficient are we talking? Try 10,000 billion. Let me say that again, $10 trillion. That staggering figure represents the value of U.S. Treasury trades that were completely agreed to but just failed to execute properly in our legacy systems. $10 trillion in trade fails. Imagine buying an asset, and just because of some clunky settlement delays, it simply isn't there when you need it. That right there proves exactly why we desperately need these new distributed ledgers. We need instant atomic settlement to fix this broken financial plumbing.
Moving right along, Section 3, Tool Number 2, Smart Contracts. Okay, so once you have a shared ledger, your distributed database, you need a way to actually execute agreements on it. In economic theory, we love to talk about a central planner, a perfectly informed, neutral entity that organizes the market efficiently. Well, smart contracts are revolutionary because they're automated, multi-agent agreements. They let us take that totally abstract economic concept of a centralized planner and translate it directly into decentralized, executable code. The code itself becomes the impartial planner. It's automatically executing trades, releasing escrows, and enforcing the rules the exact second the conditions are met, all without needing a human middleman sitting there pushing buttons. But of course, there's a catch. Getting all these decentralized parties to agree on the state of that code brings up a classic dilemma called the Byzantine generals problem. Picture this. You've got generals surrounding a city, and they need to attack at the exact same time to win. But they can only communicate using messengers who might get captured, or worse, some of the generals themselves might secretly be traitors. So how on earth do decentralized parties agree on a single truth and coordinate their actions when the network is totally unreliable or maybe even has bad actors in it?
This sets up such a fascinating contrast in how our two disciplines try to solve this fundamental issue of trust. Computer science? It tries to solve it through replication and parallel computing. It uses Byzantine fault-tolerant algorithms, like Bitcoin's proof of work, to just mathematically outnumber the rogue nodes with sheer consensus. But economics approaches trust totally differently, through mechanism design. It focuses completely on human incentives. It asks, how can we design the payout structures, using concepts like Bayesian Nash equilibrium, so that it is always in the individual's best, most selfish interest to just simply report the truth? The truly great financial designs of the future are going to have to combine both of these approaches.
All right, section 4. Our third tool, encryption.
Keeping secrets in finance is actually an incredibly vital ancient problem. I mean, look at this timeline. Thousands of years ago in Mesopotamia, traders would literally put transaction tokens inside these clay envelopes, bake them solid, and stamp the outside. That way, the person receiving it knew exactly what was supposed to be inside, and absolutely no one could tamper with the shipment while it was en route. Fast forward to today, and we've replaced baked clay with modern cryptography, public and private keys. And looking toward the future, we are stepping into the realm of pure mathematical miracles, like zero-knowledge proofs and fully homomorphic encryption.
So what does all this modern encryption actually allow us to do? Well, it lets us send secure messages, prove exactly who sent them, stop the sender from later backing out and denying it, and verify the message hasn't been tampered with. But honestly, the real mind-bender here is that fifth point. Fully homomorphic encryption actually allows us to compute math on completely encrypted data. Just imagine an automated exchange where buyers and sellers submit their bids entirely encrypted. Literally no one, not even the platform running it, can see the individual bids, yet the algorithm can still intersect supply and demand and find the exact equilibrium price. It is absolute privacy combined with perfect market execution. Just crazy, right?
Which brings us to Section 5, the future financial design.
So what happens when we synthesize all three of these tools? The shared ledgers, the automated contracts, the absolute encryption? We get a totally new blueprint. We move away from those static end-of-day balance sheets and step into algorithmic flows on dynamic networks. Think about our current system. Trade credits and debts get totally jammed up because entity A owes B, B owes C, and C owes A. Everyone is just sitting around waiting for someone else to pay first. But if we map these obligations on a dynamic network, we can use advanced algorithms to instantly spot those closed cycles and clear them all out simultaneously. We could even program the system to judiciously inject a little bit of liquidity at the exact optimal node to unclog the entire financial chain.
Now, all this new interconnectedness forces a really tough choice for policymakers. They basically have to choose between two completely competing views of market design. On one side, you have risk sharing. This is the idea that we should increase the number of interconnected traders to stabilize the whole system and absorb shocks together. Make the market stick together. But on the flip side, you have the contagion perspective. That's the fear that if absolutely everyone is deeply connected, a sudden financial shock will spread like a virus, which means we should actually limit and isolate markets to stop the damage from spreading. The thing is, these new technological tools are going to force regulators to explicitly code their policy choices directly into the very architecture of the market.
And that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. We've seen today that we have the computer science tools, we have the economic frameworks, we literally know how to build shared databases, automate trust, and mathematically guarantee privacy. So if we can replace our fragmented, failing legacy systems with distributed ledgers, automated smart contracts, and secure encryption, what excuse do we possibly have left for sticking with a financial system that fails us? The technology to build a better, fairer, and way more efficient global economy is already sitting right here. The only question now is, how quickly are we